time to get fluent and chill with Anthony K of Sports Fluent and Jermaine J. Dub of Chilltown Hoops.
It's finals basketball, man. You know, when you get to the playoffs, you already have to be good. But when you get to the later rounds, your game has to improve, and that's just what's been going on with this Milwaukee Bucks team. Middleton has just gotten better as the playoffs as they have advanced.
So let's start with him, because we always start with the winning team, and there's some stats and stuff I want to get to, but let's just start on Middleton. Right? You have guys like Kendrick Perkins saying he's the Batman. You have Jalen Rose saying, "Well, hold on, Giannis is the Batman. But they're confusing, I think, the Batman with the best player." So just overall, you started off with Middleton. So what do you see in his game that has changed? Because there are times when you're like, we talked about it. He's inconsistent. Is he going to be the guy? Right. But we know that they need him to be effective for this team to win.
Well, Perk said something a while ago about him being the Batman to this team. And it got me to thinking about, well, the same thing was going on with Shaq and Kobe. They go to Shaq early, and then we get into the meat and potatoes of the game, and then we go to Bryant. Same thing happened with Jabbar and Magic. We go to Jabbar early, we get into the meat and potatoes of the game, and we go to Magic. So that doesn't mean that Magic was a better player than Jabbar. That doesn't mean that Kobe was a better player than Shaq. What it did mean, though, was you have to have a guy when you get into the meat and potatoes of your game that's on the perimeter who can close out a game, because you're not going far in the playoffs if you don't have that.
That's the key, right? People are confusing a closer with the best player. And
right.
Just because, and today I was listening to them, and one of them brought up a good analogy, and they said, well, it's like pitching. Just because you have a starting pitcher who goes 7 strong innings, 8 strong innings, whatever, and then the closer comes in and closes the game, that doesn't make that closing pitcher a better pitcher than the starting pitcher. It's a different role, and each person needs to be. I think when I saw Giannis get that rebound late in the game and immediately, like it was a hot potato, say here and give it to Middleton, knowing that they were going to foul, that's smart basketball. That's not, hey, I know what my strengths are, and look, shooting free throws isn't one of them, and I'm going to give it to the guy who can do it. And so, we praise guys like LeBron for making the right basketball play, and in the same breath, I feel now we're knocking certain guys for making the right basketball play.
Mariano Rivera is probably the best closer in the history of baseball. Was he better than Roger Clemens? Come on, man. No, he wasn't.
Yeah. Now, at closing games, yes, but no. Could Rivera go out and pitch 7 innings?
No.
I don't think so, right?
No.
But you're right. You picked a good one because he's one of the best.
Right.
So I do want to bring up something with the Bucks, however, and it was a consistent theme. They shot 7 of 29, 24% from 3, and still managed to win that game. We're going to get to their defense in a minute, but is that a concern?
No, and the reason why it's not a concern is because on the defensive end, this is who they are. What you saw, they did the same thing to Phoenix, because that's Phoenix's game. They held Phoenix to 7 for 23 from the long ball. Milwaukee has always shot the 3 ball. I think they're one of the 5 best teams in the game shooting the long ball. That's always been their game, and that's not going to change in the playoffs. The recipe for Milwaukee was their defense. That was the difference. What they did was they slowed down Phoenix's transition game. That was huge. Milwaukee had 15 transition points. Phoenix had 0. So we could handle them not making threes when we're making up for it on the defensive end. Because when you're missing threes, that means that the transition game is picking up. Well, the transition game didn't pick up because of the pickup point with Drew Holiday. So that's not really a concern for me because, like I said, Milwaukee, this is their game. They shoot the long ball. Now, they fall in love with it a little bit more than I'd like for them to do, especially in the meat and potatoes of the game, but their defense picks up for that.
And that's you transition perfectly, because I was going to ask you about Holiday, right? He has an off shooting night, 4 of 20, I think, 0 for 5 from 3. But man, did his defense ever make life difficult? Chris Paul looked terrible. Let's be honest. Throughout the game, but specifically very uncharacteristic turnover late, right? That really kind of sealed it. That, listen, I never say one play is the reason the team won or lost, but very like he did not look like himself.
Well, like I just mentioned, you got a team like Phoenix, and you and I talked about this before, Tone. Phoenix is the transition team. They get a lot of their stuff in transition. When you got a guy like Drew Holiday that's picking up three-quarter court, that's picking up 94 feet, you're completely slowing down their game. 15-0 in transition points, fast break points yesterday. That's huge for them. That's huge. And now Chris Paul can't get himself in a rhythm. Chris Paul went to the stripe 0 times last night. DeAndre Ayton went to the stripe 0 times last night. And why is that? DeAndre Ayton is playing his best when he's rim running, when he's defending the paint, and when he's diving to the basket. Rim running is the most important part. But they can't get that going because their transition game has basically been shut down by Drew Holiday. And that's been a huge difference in this series.
So I saw one play, speaking of Ayton, Giannis with a block late in that fourth quarter. Can we put to bed that he's injured?
Well,
wow.
If
that's getting injured.
If that's what being injured looks like, I can't imagine what he looked like when he's healthy. So that was huge. That was absolutely huge because we got a one-possession game. We got a one-possession game. And if he converts that, we got a tie game and we got a different ball game. So, and that's why Giannis is the defender that he is. You know, it's not that he's underrated. People don't talk about Giannis enough as a defender. I mean, we talk about the reigning defensive player of the year. So Giannis isn't a guy who just plays defense. He's elite on the defensive end. So that's not a play that I'm surprised about, but it was still awesome to watch.
Yeah, and here was the thing. It reminded me right away, I thought, we had that conversation about them switching and pulling Giannis away from the rim because that's not good for them. I thought, wow, what a difference it makes when he's back there covering up any mistakes. Not to even mention that great steal off the inbound that he took coast to coast for the dunk. But I mean, it was that block that made me think, if he was on a switch, if he was out on the perimeter, that play doesn't happen, and it's a whole different game. So.
He thought to himself that he was going to get dunked on. He said, "I thought I was going to get dunked on," because he thought he was late. That recovery was huge.
You know this. You know this. We cannot, because I've had moments where I'm like, I'm scared to get dunked on. You can't play defense like that. You can't because it takes away from your game. So it's going to happen to you eventually at some point. Although one day, maybe on Monday on our live. Remind me to tell you the story of Kenny Skywalker. Just kind of keep that in your memory banks, and we'll talk about it on Monday, because right now I want to talk about the Suns. So we know that Chris Paul didn't have a great game. Booker had a game, but struggled with some foul trouble. But played well, shot well, other than, again, threes over 3, but put up 42. But really, other than him, they let Crowder get his, I think, 3 of 9, 15 points. And I think that's kind of a shift in the Bucks' defensive strategy where they're like, hey, because you saw the first couple games, Carter got nothing. This time it's like, hey, if he's score his, let him. Because we think that's going to hurt us, and it hasn't. Is there anything else you saw from Phoenix, from their offense or their defense, that you think, hey, going into Game 5, this is the top thing they need to change or work on?
They got to get Chris Paul going, not just offensively. They got to get him going all the way around, because he is the head of their attack. If he's not rolling, they're not rolling. He's the difference in everything that they're doing in their transition game, in their half-court game. He's the difference in what they're doing defensively. He's not rolling, they're not rolling. DeAndre Ayton, his game is predicated on what Chris Paul is doing. And if Chris Paul isn't doing anything, both offensively and in transition, particularly, he can't get it going, right? So Chris Paul has to get going. Bridges didn't give them anything yesterday. Cam Johnson has been actually really good for them. He knocks down open shots. I love what he's doing. However, we got to get on the backboard. Absolutely. Let's talk about the fact that in these two games, 31-11 on the offensive backboard, Tone, just on the offensive backboard alone. That's over 21, over 20 second chance opportunities. That could be the difference in the game. That's killing them. That's absolutely killing them. They got to do a better job on the backboard, and they got to do a better job getting out in transition. They got to figure out how to get Chris Paul free so they can pick their transition game up. Absolutely, and they got to get on the backboard.
Is it something? I think back to my days of full court pressing defenses. It's not that, but it is picking up Chris Paul. Like, do they have a way of getting it into someone else's hands and maybe Chris Paul starting at half court? Because obviously, I think he's expending too much energy. I think just getting it across the timeline. So maybe is there a different strategy that you see that, hey, maybe let's let, I don't know if it's Devin Booker, I don't know that he's a good enough ball handler, but Devin Booker to bring it up and just have Chris Paul start at the half court. I know that hurts their transition game. I get that. But like I said, I think he's expending too much energy just to get into their offensive sets.
Well, they've actually tried that where they get Chris Paul in the backcourt and then he'll just throw it up and advance it. But what that does is now that throws them off their offense in terms of their rhythm, because they rely so much on Chris Paul to get them in their sets.
That's why I want to switch it. I don't want Chris Paul throw it up. I want them throw it up to Chris Paul, because I think he gets them into their offense still. But I think they need to move him up.
Well, the difference with that is once he gets the ball out of his hands, Drew Holiday has been doing such a great job of keeping the ball away from him. And they get the ball, and when they get the ball in Chris Paul's hands, it's so late in the shot clock that now they got to hurry up and get something. So that's been something that Drew Holiday, despite what you've seen, Tone, with him in terms of him shooting, he needs to be on the floor. We have to have him on the floor.
Oh,
now,
yeah,
I think layups more, but he's got to be on the floor. He has to be.
Listen, my thing with Holiday is I love what he's doing on the defensive end. I also see what he's doing offensively, so I just don't want him taking 20 shots, right? Like, I get it, but 20 shots. listen, shooters shoot. Trust me, I know. You shoot yourself into a slump, you shoot yourself out of a slump. And ask any of my coaches, I never saw a shot that I didn't like, and I was going to take it. So listen, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say he shouldn't. But if he shoots maybe 10, 12 a game, I'm feeling better than 20.
Sure.
So I'm going to call out our records a little bit. I believe I'm 4-0, and you're 3-1 on picking games, because you got that Bucks, that close one in game 2. I got to remind you about that. So now game 5 predictions, and who do you think is going to win, and what do they need to do to win?
Tone, I'll tell you what, man, I don't have a problem with Milwaukee winning game 5, because I don't see how Phoenix can stop them from doing what they've been doing. They don't have anybody like Giannis. Phoenix doesn't. And they don't have anybody. I think DeAndre Ayton did a good job of slowing him down, but ultimately they don't have anybody like Giannis. And I don't see Phoenix being able to stop Milwaukee from doing what they've been doing defensively. And Chris Paul is such a huge part of their attack, man. And to be able to slow him down, Drew Holiday's been doing such a great job at that, and they don't have anybody to combat that. So when Chris Paul's getting slowed down, I think Milwaukee wins game 5.
I am going to go with the Suns.
Okay.
And listen, I'm not suggesting a conspiracy. However, if I'm pulling out my ball, I'm taking the Suns. I'm saying they're going to be reigning. They're going to have probably their best 3-point shooting game of the series. Holiday's going to be in foul trouble.
Uh-oh.
And Chris Paul's going to have, that's where I said I'm not calling it a conspiracy, but I'm feeling Holiday's going to be in foul trouble and Chris Paul's going to have himself a game. I'm also hopefully optimistic that the series goes 7, because it's been such a good, fun series to watch that I want 7 games. I want to see these two guys play seven times. So I'm the Suns back at home, feeling good with a little help from their friends in gray, and you got the Bucks. So that's what we got. We're gonna do that game rules. What's the next game is on
Saturday night.
Saturday night. So then we will be back with our recap of game 5 and preview of game 6 on Sunday. It's Fluent and Chill with Anthony K, J Dub. Appreciate you, man.
In the house. You know where to find us.